Well, it doesn't make sense to me. How am I supposed to buy them a present if I don't even know who the bride is? Oh, greetings, my friends! Welcome back to Stark Raving. I'm your host, Lord Stark. Well, the Ravens are in with the latest gossip, so let's get started. I call these events Walk of Punishment. Let's check in on Daenerys Targaryen.
Dany passes the Walk of Punishment, where slaves are crucified and left to die for their crimes, even crimes as minor as lying to their masters. Sir Barristan begs her to leave the slavers' city, while Ser Jorah reminds her she needs the Unsullied if she's to conquer Westeros. In any war, innocents suffer, but the Unsullied will not rape and pillage the innocent as most armies do. Though Selmy counters that for an army to succeed it must believe in a cause, and the Unsullied fight because they are told to, not because they care. She approaches the slave masters and announces she wishes to buy all the Unsullied. In return, they will receive one of her 3 dragons. Taking the slaver's translator as a good faith bonus, they leave.
Khaleesi, a dragon is worth more than any army.
You're both here to advise me, but if you ever question me in front of strangers again, you'll be advising someone else.
Oh, no, they didn't. Well, with Dany making up her mind in the south, we go as far north as we dare to check in on the whereabouts of Jon Snow and the remnants of the Night's Watch.
In the northern wastes, Mance's army comes across the horses of the Night's Watch, all dead and arranged in a spiral by the White Walkers.
Now, I particularly like this postmodern art installation, particularly the use of dead horses. It's as if it's saying, we've just been murdered and now we're going to be resurrected to come back and murder you in your sleep. It really has something to say, and I appreciate that. 40 years in art school.
Jon notices there are no dead humans, meaning they've been reanimated by the Walkers. Mance sends out an advanced scout, including Jon, to scale the wall and, when the time is right, ambush Castle Black.
I always see your signal.
Send your eagle above the wall every night. When it's time, I'm going to light the biggest fire the North has ever seen.
Elsewhere, the beaten and weary members of the Watch arrive at Craster's Keep. Mormont asks Craster for sanctuary, and when he sees the grim faces of the soldiers and the fact that they're all gripping their weapons, he allows them to stay. Inside, they hear a woman in labor. Sam discovers it's Gilly. She's given birth to a boy, meaning the child is doomed to be a sacrifice to the Walkers.
I'll put our monsters in Westeros against any other monsters any day of the week. What's that? Oh, you've got Eastern Europeans who sip blood. Very scary. We've got Yeti who eat babies and control armies of the dead. But let's move on to happier times with the Starks.
At his grandfather's funeral, Robb Stark watches as his uncle, Edmure Tully, tries to set the floating casket on fire, but fails. Finally, Edmure and Catelyn's uncle Brynden Tully, aka the Blackfish, does it in one go. Edmure's recent battle, though successful, allowed the Mountain, a Lannister lieutenant, to escape. They took 2 of Tywin's distant nephews hostage, but it was too great a cost in manpower. Catelyn, with her uncle, grieves over the loss of her father and 2 youngest sons. As Lady Talisa sees to their wounds, the young Lannisters question her about her husband Robb.
He can turn into a wolf at night.
True.
And he eats the flesh of his enemies.
True.
As the Brotherhood Without Banners moves out, the Hound is locked up, and Arya and Gendry get ready to move. Hot Pie announces he's staying as a baker at the inn. He's made Arya a going-away present, a bread wolf.
Little did they know that Hot Pie's bread would become so renowned the Lannisters would try to shut it down so they could control the baking industry. But for the right price, and if you can find him, you can still buy some of Hot Pie's brown bread. That's right. Coming this summer, Hot Pie is baking bread. Oh, that hurt even me. Let's head over to Dragonstone.
Melisandre is leaving Stannis, following clues she's seen in her fire gazing. He's convinced that she's abandoning him after his failure to conquer King's Landing. He tries to get her to stay and bear him another son.
There is another way.
You told me your magic requires a king's blood.
Yes.
I'm the one true king.
You are. But there are others with your blood in their veins.
Oh, Stannis is a blood donor. Speaking of blood and relatives, let's head over to King's Landing.
At the small council, the Lannisters play the home version of Game of Thrones. They still have no idea where Jaime is, and decide to send Littlefinger to the Eyrie to marry Catelyn's younger sister and thus bring those lands under their control. With Littlefinger leaving, Tyrion is now the new master of coin for the realm. Tyrion and Podrick collect the royal bookkeeping from Littlefinger and Raz. Tyrion decides to repay Podrick for saving his life by gifting him with 3 of Littlefinger's finest whores. After a while, Tyrion discovers that Littlefinger's been borrowing more money than they can possibly repay when Podrick returns.
Oh, it was a gift, Podrick.
I wouldn't take it, my lord.
What are you saying? These ladies enjoyed him so much they gave him the time for free?
They then ask the squire for details on his, let's say, technique.
Teach us, you magnificent stallion! Teach us so that someday, somehow, a second man might actually be able to please a woman. Speaking of blights on the fairer sex, let's check in with Theon Greyjoy.
Theon is rescued by the young man from earlier. He gets him on a horse and sends him east to where his sister is waiting. Theon finds no rescue but an ambush. A blow from one of his pursuers knocks him off his horse, but he is saved when his rescuer returns and puts arrows through his captors.
You know, I just bet Theon gets to live happily ever after. You know what someone should do? They should cut off his dick-ish ways. The next time he's being a jerk, they should just stop him. There. I said it, and I don't regret it. Speaking of people who know nothing of loss, let's check in with Jaime Lannister.
Brienne and Jaime are tied back to back on a horse as prisoners of House Bolton, bannermen to House Stark. As always, Jaime complains about their current situation. Things get serious when he warns her that she may well be raped and murdered by the soldiers tonight. Sure enough, later that night, the Boltons beat up Brienne and drag her into the woods. Jaime stops it by mentioning that her father is rich and able to pay a sizable ransom as long as his daughter is not harmed.
Your father, he'd pay your weight in gold to get you back. You'll be a rich man till the end of your days.
They untie Jaime and sit him down for food. However, they quickly hold him down and mock him for relying on his father's wealth. Then they chop off his hand.
Oh God, I hope they don't throw that out. That would go great with my remaining Sean Bean heads. Well, a dramatic episode to be sure, but is drama always entertaining? Let's take a closer look at this episode.
Last year, Jaime Lannister spent most of the season sitting in a muddy cage. Here, he finally gets a chance to shine after too long in the background. You can see that although they don't like one another, he and Brienne are beginning to bond, especially when a few words from him spares her from the abuse of the Boltons. That, along with his maiming, promise for an exciting season for this character. Many of the characters had very brief single scenes. One who stands out is Arya, and while not much happens, it is important as it writes off the Hot Pie character and gives him a somewhat pathetic farewell in keeping with the character's general uselessness. Another one-scene player was Stannis as he says goodbye to Melisandre. However, this scene dragged on and played its foreshadowing a bit heavy-handedly for my taste. She could have easily explained her reasons for leaving when she arrives wherever it is she's going. One character who had no lack of screen time was Dany. She had plenty of time, but again, not much was accomplished. Her kindness is rejected, and then she haggles for slaves. The one bit I did like was where she put her advisors in their place, showing she's finally starting to grow into her role as a leader, not just a protector of the abused. The Starks also had a mix of good and bad. I love the opening funerals that really set up without words the two characters of Edmure and Blackfish. Also, Rob's dressing down of his uncle worked, but Catelyn's angst didn't really do much for me. King's Landing was also a mixed bag. I love the bit with the chairs. It just said so much about Cersei and Tyrion with where they placed their chairs in relation to Tywin. The whole thing with Littlefinger turning over his job to Tyrion, though, just went nowhere and could have been cut down to the announcement and then the scene in Tyrion's room where he discovers the kingdom is in debt. Also, it was entertaining to a point, but did we really need the adventures of Podrick, male gigolo? One advantage about doing this show after the season is over is hindsight. Theon's story was just so much action with little explanation, but trust me, this is the highlight for Theon this season. Some of the best scenes were with Jon Snow and the Night's Watch. Again, all fairly brief, but they entertained and set up story hooks for the next episode. The survivors are back at Craster's Keep, and Sam has found out that his crush just gave birth to a boy, which means the child will die. Jon is also made part of the Wildlings' invading army. He must help or they'll kill him. What does that mean for him? What will he have to do? Also, what was the significance of the dead horse spiral?
Overall, I thought that the shorter bits in this episode were the better ones, as they kept a tighter focus on story and characters. There were a lot of dramatic moments in this episode, but they weren't always as well thought out or as entertaining as they should have been. I give Walk of Punishment.
Do you have running?
3 kingly bitch slaps out of 5. Today's question about life in Westeros comes to us from Cursed by the Dice Gods. He writes, Lord Stark. Well, the Stark children all at one point had dire wolves as pets. This makes me wonder if you yourself had a pet, and if so, what was it? Well, Cursed, I grew up on a little island off the coast of Winterfell called Dork. It snows there 9 months out of the year, and hails the other 3. Any food that grows there is tough and tasteless. Any people who grow there are even more so. The only upside are the pets. While some people have ponies or parrots, we have cockatiels. Isn't that right, Princess Cuddles? If you have a question about life in Westeros, leave it in the comments section below. I'll choose one to answer on next week's episode. Until then, I am Lord Stark, and this is Stark Raving!